video, I want to dive into the concept of self-discovery and spirituality, not just as a concept or something that we study or research, but actually as something a little bit more formidable, and truly the root of it being the understanding of ourselves and why we do what we do, why we think the way that we think, and how everything ultimately calibrates into everything that we are experiencing. And, from the ideology of the mirror principle, that everything in our external reality is mirroring some aspect of ourselves. It's great to sort of think about that and try to conceptualize it. But I think really what has helped me is by digging into the little nuances of my own behavioral patterns. And anytime frustration or anxiety or discontent is bubbling up, rising within me, I really have to go back to the code I'm writing, the output of my own system. And in a lot of these teachings, I'm drilling back to my direct experience and my sequence and sequential journey of learning. And what I've realized with my own journey is that oftentimes this perpetual negativity that seems to crop up in my external world has its root when I follow it back to some seed inside of myself. And it happens so automatically. So often we will jump to judgment. We've had interactions with a friend or a colleague or somebody in our family, and we've layered those judgments on that person, and then something can happen to that person. We go, okay, well, that's why that happened, because they were negative, or they're not a happy person, or something of that nature. But then the minute that we do that, the minute that we judge, or the minute that we go back and condemn somebody, well, we're just the same energy that we're calling out. So seeing oneself from this vantage point of a high spiritual perch really isn't all that enlightened, because the minute that we do that, we're categorizing, and the minute that we categorize, we're really not spiritually enlightened. So this is why I like to think of this infinite expanse of potential. Everything at all times has the potential to be anything and everything. And what is energetically calling forth in that quantum soup of what you actually experience? So when it's actually crystallizing into matter, into experience, into something that's visceral for us, that's always happening in accordance with our vibration. And you can't fake it. You can't pretend around it. You can't pray it into being, in the sense of, this idea of, okay, I can go and sin as much as I want, or be as terrible as I want, and then I'm going to confess and it's just all going to be fine. I mean, it's great to take responsibility for your actions, but even so, if you're constantly on this perpetual wheel of doing shitty things and then saying, okay, I did that shitty thing, and then doing more shitty things, you're just staying at that same low vibrational frequency. Admitting to it, is like 1% of the battle. You actually have to change the patterning within yourself. And because that patterning is so much your algorithm, it is just the program that is running you, it is not easy to change. It takes so much effort to identify your triggers, and not just identify them, but to catch them before they create that output or outburst of a wave or a ripple of low vibrational energy or negativity. And so the other great thing, but also difficult thing, is that other individuals, other souls are always mirroring back to us their own traumas, their own triggers, their own ups and downs of their frequency. So we are constantly asked to be calibrating our own frequency against those in our environment, which is mirrored back to us. So no wonder it takes multiple lifetimes to sort oneself soul vibration or calibrate to a higher level. And that's not a bad thing, because even in that, there's this total blessing that you get to experience. If we can look at the contrast, the other side of it, what would be the alternative to not experiencing all of this catalyst and contrast and everything around us, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, is nothingness or no growth. Because if everything was just static and everybody was just beautiful all the time and happy all the time and nothing bad ever happened, how long would that experience be satisfying? It would be numb. It would have no variance. It would have no specialness. It would have no courage, no character development. So even as we walk the spiritual path, we understand that the obstacles are as beautiful as the triumphs. And so we dance. So we understand, we come into this balance where, yes, we are taking responsibility for our own output. Yes, we are grateful for all of the beauty, all of the diversity, all of the challenges that keep perpetually pushing us forward into a higher version of ourselves, within the same knowledge that it is like this. It's like waves in the ocean. You're going to move up, and then you test yourself. You get triggered, you get frustrated, things become overwhelming, so that you can see if you actually integrated what you learned. Just like in any school, in any college, in any grade throughout grade school, you have to apply it. It has to become an applied learning element to make sure it is actually realized. And even once it's realized, oftentimes we are going to be triggered back into our own patterning. And so, back to this idea about how we calibrate and how we transmit into the world around us. We have to look at everything from the voyeur perspective of, is this my highest calibration of how I can see any given action, any given thought, any given situation? And daily, we have to come back to it. Even for myself, I find, okay, I'm in a fight with my spouse, or, I'm getting irritated. I'm sitting there and I'm trying to back into traffic and I can't see what's going on. And, there's things that are irritating. And to continually remember that, okay, no, I've got to put myself back into this mental state of calmness, gratitude. It takes effort. A lot of diligent, consistent effort. And what I can say about the path, undoubtedly, is if I look back to my former self 20 years ago, I'm a rock star in dealing with energy, with my emotions, with my emotional calibration and how I see other people, my projection and the way I deal with others, the way I tend now not to get sucked into energies, vortices, experiences that take me into pity, sorrow, condemnation, judgment, hurtful behavior. Those things I have been able to eradicate quite consistently over 20 years, but it certainly wasn't easy. It's taken a long time. And still, there are those irritabilities that even myself, I have not learned how to get past some of those triggers. I'm still on that path. And what a beautiful thing that I still get to read and learn and study, because the path of the teacher is the path of the learner. No one can teach until they've truly learned. And to learn, you have to put into practice all of these little concepts, all of these coping mechanisms and skills that you learn along the way. And some of them fit and some of them don't. And then you come to that precipice where you start to realize, I've mastered this. I'm sitting in the seat of mastery of enough of this that I can start to help and guide others. And that's when you move from a certain level of being a student into that teacher role. But as any good teacher will tell you, when we are teaching, we always have to be reintegrating, recalibrating, relearning, and asking for higher and higher knowledge, because that's what keeps it fun. That is what keeps everything in play, is this hunger to know more, to do more, to be more. And isn't that a beautiful thing, that creation and existence and drive continue on? So I'm not going to make this a really long video. I have to get back to work with my other colleges and lesson plans and what's getting delineated over there for some really exciting things for 2026. But I wanted to come on and just give you a little dive into what my morning meditations look like, what I was working on. And it's really the fine tuning of those micro triggers, the things that, you know, I feel in my core like I should be over this stuff. I feel like, why is this bubbling up? You know, I've done so much of the meditating and the reading and the practice and the study and that spiritual connection. And why do I still have those moments of weakness? And so I see beauty in them, because I see that potential for more learning, more growth. And that just makes me want to dive deeper into all of it. So I am wishing you such a blessed day from a beautiful hilltop in the jungle here today, looking out over the ocean. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video.